A police officer seizes a parrot that had been living beside an elderly woman for 70 years. You won't believe the outcome. The smell of coffee slowly rose, blending with the faint aroma of ripe bananas. Celina placed the slices on the little porcelain plate with the same care as always, her trembling hands steady in their routine. Juca was perched on top of the living room cabinet, pecking at the worn-out wood. With wings spread for a moment, he puffed his chest as if to show that this place was his. "Get down here, you rascal, come eat," murmured Celina with a faint smile, almost toothless but full of affection. Juca fluttered lightly and landed on the back of the chair where she always sat every morning. It had been like this for decades. Juca flew wherever he wanted. His wings were never clipped and he never left the house, not even when the windows were open. It was as if he knew that this was his world. Celina picked up a small piece of banana and gently offered it. "You like the riper ones, right? Just like my dad." At that moment the doorbell rang. She jumped slightly, the piece of banana slipping from her hand and falling to the floor. Nearly no one showed up unannounced. Her children didn't call anymore, and the neighbors knew she enjoyed quiet mornings. She opened the door slowly. Two men in dark uniforms stood outside. One of them gave a faint smile. "Good morning. Are you Celina?" "Yes, I am." "Is something wrong?" she responded, her heart racing. "We received a tip about a wild animal being kept in a residence. We came to check it out." It took her a moment to understand. She furrowed her brows, trying to connect the dots. "Animal?" The younger officer subtly pointed inside the room, where Juca was now perched on the shelf, head tilted, curious about the movement. Celina glanced at him, then back at the men, and her expression shifted. "Oh, it's because of Juca." Neither of the two men responded. The older one simply nodded and opened the folder. Celina leaned her body against the door, crossing her arms as if she needed to protect herself from what was to come. "But he's been with me since I was young. My father gave him to me when I was 20, she said. The men exchanged a glance, but their tone remained neutral. "We understand, ma'am. However, as a matter of protocol, we need to take him. You can provide his history later, but the animal must be removed." Celina slowly raised her hand to her forehead, as if trying to process what she was hearing. Then she looked at the two men, her eyes misty. "He doesn't have a cage, he's never had one. His wings are free. He flies all around the house, goes wherever he wants. He's never run away, never tried to." The younger officer began to approach the door calmly. "We're not saying you mistreated him. We just have to follow procedure." She took a step back, then another, as if giving them space felt worse than resisting. Juca flew closer to the door, the sound of his wings filling the room with that familiar noise. Celina looked up at the parrot and extended her arm. He came right away, landing gently. She held him to her chest as if protecting a secret. "He doesn't know how to live without me." They stayed like that for a few seconds, Juca in her hands, the silence between the three of them, Celina, the two officers, and the parrot, thick as fog. "All right. I know it's not your fault." With care, she handed Juca to the younger officer, who gently placed him in the transport crate. The click of the lock sounded louder than it should have. When the car left the street, Celina remained standing for a few minutes. Then she slowly closed the gate and entered the house in silence. On the floor, the piece of banana was still there. The chair where Juca used to perch was empty. The sound of his wings seemed to linger in the air, as if it had left a trail behind. She sat back in the armchair and looked into the emptiness. For the first time in 70 years he wasn't there. The wall clock read 8:20, but time seemed to have stood still since the previous morning. Celina was still in the armchair, her body slightly hunched as if she had slept there or had never left the spot. The bowl of fruit was still on the table, now with slices that had darkened and overripe. The sweet smell of papaya began to ferment in the stale air of the room. She couldn't bring herself to move it or even touch it, as if it still belonged to someone. She stood slowly, her knees aching more than usual. Her fingers brushed against the bookshelf, gliding over a thin layer of dust. Her chest tightened as she noticed that this spot, up high, was where Juca used to sleep on the warmer afternoons. "You always liked this little corner," she murmured to herself, her voice hoarse from having spoken little in the past hours. She entered the kitchen and turned on the radio, pressing the same button she always did. An old song played, but it wasn't the one she wanted to hear. She turned it off in the middle of the first verse. The silence felt less painful than the memory of when Juca used to whistle along to the melody. The phone rang once, twice. She let it ring, figuring it was likely a bill collector, a telemarketer, or maybe someone from the family. But it wasn't Juca, so it didn't matter. Through the window, she saw the neighbors sweeping the sidewalk. A young woman was pushing a stroller, distracted by her phone. Everything outside seemed to continue normally, but inside the house it didn't. Celina walked to the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. At the back, inside a cardboard box wrapped in old fabric, she found some photographs. There she was, sitting on a wooden bench with her father, both smiling. Juca was perched on her shoulder, still young, with less full feathers and a lighter beak. "You gave him to me, Dad," she said, holding the faded photo between her fingers. She sat down on the edge of the bed and, this time, let her body sink into the mattress. Her hand fell into her lap, still holding the photo. The tears came without warning, silent, as though they were part of a sorrow that had been stored away for much longer. "They took him as if he were just any animal," she cried to herself. The doorbell rang with a single chime. She didn't get up, just listened to the sound of their footsteps fading away. Later, when the sun was setting, she decided to gather Juca's toys scattered throughout the house. She picked up a little bell, a chewed-up plastic spoon, a piece of fabric he used to drag around the rooms, and placed everything in a shoebox. She tucked it away in the closet behind some blankets. "Just until you come back," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. That night, she tried to sleep early. She lay down with the light on and the bedroom door slightly open, just as she used to when Juca would fly in the middle of the night and perch on the doorframe to watch her. She waited for any sound, a whistle, anything. But the house remained silent, and the silence seemed to have a voice, one that said, "Either you get up or he'll never come back." The next morning, Celina woke to the sunlight cutting through the white sheets, right into her face. There were no corners or wings fluttering through the house, but there was a new restlessness, a quiet energy, as though something within her, dormant until then, had decided to ignite once again. She sat on the edge of the bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor. She stayed there for a few minutes, staring at the closed wardrobe, the empty space on the shelf, and the perch resting in the corner of the room like an abandoned sanctuary. "This isn't how this story ends," she whispered softly to herself. In the kitchen, she tried to make coffee. She burnt the water a little, forgot to add the sugar, but drank it anyway. She had already decided that she was leaving that day. She didn't know exactly where, but she knew she couldn't stay still any longer. She put on a light blue dress and carefully combed her hair. She slipped on her shoes slowly, as if getting ready for something important, and it was. It wasn't just a simple outing. It was a movement against the feeling of helplessness that had consumed her. She went to the environmental police station. The receptionist, a young and distracted woman, seemed to not understand the weight of who was standing in front of her. Celina explained the situation calmly but firmly. "The parrot is not an object, he's my life companion. 70 years. He knows me better than anyone." The receptionist typed away on the computer without lifting her eyes. "Do you have any legal documentation of the animal's origin?" Celina took a deep breath, not getting upset. She just answered with the truth. "When I got him, those things didn't even exist. My father gave him to me. He's been gone a long time." The receptionist didn't respond right away. "Unfortunately, without proof, the case will follow the standard procedure. What happens to him will be evaluated. If he's deemed fit for release, he may be reintroduced to his natural habitat or sent to a center." Celina felt her body tremble. "Release? He doesn't know how to live in the wild. He's never been there. He flies freely inside the house but always comes back to my arm. Always." The receptionist didn't answer, just printed out a paper and handed it to her. Celina left the station with a heavy heart, but now she knew that if she wanted Juca back, she would have to fight with more than just words. In the town square, she sat on a bench, feeling lost. It was then that a woman with gray hair approached her. It was the retired teacher who lived 2 streets over. They had crossed paths a few times, but it only took one look for Celina to break down. "They took him," she said, her voice shaking. "They said it's illegal. But how can something that's been part of my life for so long be illegal?" The woman listened in silence before speaking. "You need help. Find a lawyer. There are people who defend these cases. You're not wrong." That same afternoon, with the help of a neighbor, Celina managed to get the contact information for a law office. She made the call, and the voice on the other end was young and polite. "Of course, Celina, you can come in and talk with me, no obligation. Your story touched me." The next day she went to the office. She entered slowly, her steps fragile but her gaze firm. The lawyer listened to everything without interrupting, and when she finished, he spoke with a confident tone. "You have a strong, real story. We're going to fight for this. Documents are important, but life weighs more, and 70 years is not something you throw away." Celina took a deep breath. For the first time since the separation, she felt she wasn't alone anymore. "Thank you. I don't want a favor. I just want justice." "That's exactly what we're going to seek," he replied, spreading the papers across the desk with the care of someone who understands that in this case, affection was also evidence. The process took weeks to take shape. The lawyer gathered documents, old photos, testimonies from neighbors, medical reports, and even a letter written by Celina herself, where she recounted Juca's story as if she were writing a memoir. The words were simple but filled with truth. While the case was being reviewed, Celina tried to maintain her routine. She woke up early, swept the sidewalk, and tidied the house, but everything felt like a rehearsal for a time that no longer existed. She didn't put fruit in the bowl anymore. She didn't open the windows like she used to. The silence grew louder, especially after 8 a.m., the time when Juca would usually make his first flight of the day. "If I had known that was the last time, I would have held you longer," she would say to the empty perch, sometimes aloud, other times just in her thoughts. The day of the trial arrived on a cloudy morning. The heavy sky seemed to echo the weight she felt in her chest. She wore a simple navy blue outfit, with buttons that took longer to fasten than usual. She pinned her hair up with a clip and placed an old brooch on her chest, a gift from her father, the same one who had given her Juca all those years ago. At the courthouse, the hallway felt unbearably long. Each step echoed through the space. The lawyer walked alongside her, a thin folder in hand and a focused look on his face. Before they entered the courtroom, he glanced at Celina and said, "Just speak from your heart. No one can take this from you." She nodded, her eyes steady but filled with tears. The hearing began with the environmental agency representative explaining the procedures. He stated that the confiscation was based on a complaint and that, although there was no evidence of mistreatment, the bird was a wild animal and being held illegally. Was the law. Then it was the lawyer's turn. He showed the photos. Celina, still young with Juca on her shoulder, a sequence of images spanning decades, birthdays, Christmases, open windows, flights across the living room. He presented the medical reports, the testimonies from neighbors, the handwritten letter. Finally, the judge asked Celina to speak. She stood slowly, her hands clasped in front of her, and looked directly at him. "Your Honor, I didn't come here to ask for a favor. I came here to defend the only thing that still keeps me standing." She took a deep breath. "I got Juca when I was 20. I was just a girl and he was only a chick. Since then he's never left me. He's seen me grow older. He's seen me lose my husband. He's seen me become alone and he stayed by my side." Her words came out strong, but every syllable carried the weight of her soul. "He's never been in a cage. He's never run away. He flies freely inside the house, but he always comes back because that is his place, just as it's mine." She paused briefly. "He's not just an animal. He's my story. And no one should have the right to tear one life away from the other after so much time." The room remained silent for a few seconds. The judge leaned back in his chair, read through some notes, and then took off his glasses as if needing to see more clearly what the words couldn't reveal. "This court acknowledges the legality of the seizure but also recognizes that not everything can be judged by the cold letter of the law." He paused, then continued, "Given the exceptional nature of this case, the proven deep emotional bond, and the emotional risk to the petitioner, I authorize the permanent return of the animal to Celina's custody." Celina didn't react immediately. She remained still, looking at the judge as if trying to make sure she had heard correctly. It was the lawyer who gently touched her arm. "You did it. He's coming back." Celina brought her hands to her mouth and closed her eyes. No tears fell, perhaps because, in that moment, everything within her was suspended, waiting for the moment she would see Juca again. In that instant, the silence inside her was finally broken. Several hours passed. Celina stood in front of her house, anxious, waiting until a car appeared around the corner. The car parked in front of the gate, and Celina was already there, standing, dressed in the same floral dress she wore on her happiest mornings. Her trembling hands gripped the gate, like someone holding their breath. When the vehicle door opened and the box was taken out, she couldn't move immediately. Only when the agent carefully handed it to her did she take a step forward and open the small door with hesitant, but certain fingers. Juca stepped out slowly, looked around, and without hesitation, flew straight to Celina's shoulder. His wings flapped powerfully, not from fear, but from longing. She held him with both hands and pressed her forehead against his, eyes closed. "You came back, my love. You came back home." There were no shouts, no applause, just the sound of wings, a racing heart, and the soul of two beings, though different in species, made of the same affection. Because there are loves that cannot be explained, only lived. And sometimes, against all odds, they win. If this story moved you, like this video, subscribe to Hidden Raylit and share it with someone who loves animals as much as they love life. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to know how far this message has reached. See you in the next video.